welcome to this quick update episode of Quilting with Don. I am Don. Maybe no surprise there. So, the last episode, I sewed an amazing Hawaiian shirt, and I can report that I successfully wore it several times. I wore it to one of the quilt meetings, I wore it to band practice, and told everyone, I made this shirt. Super happy. No, this is not it. But check out the episode if you haven't already seen it on how I made a Hawaiian shirt. I made a Hawaiian shirt all by myself. And it came out really good. Next week, Carolyn and I are going to the central Canadian city of Winnipeg, where there is Quilt Canada 2026. It's a massive annual quilt show. And the reason we're going, not only because it's going to be fun, but because I entered a quilt and it's being shown in the show. It's my Eye of Sauron quilt that I finished about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, and I showed in the Parksville local show while I entered it into the Canadian Quilters Association, the CQA sponsored Quilt Canada 2026 show in Winnipeg, and they accepted it and they're showing it. So, in between making a Hawaiian shirt and going to Winnipeg, I just had an amazing quilty week where I did workshops and I went to presentations by a remarkable, incredible, super talented lady named Terry Rowland. I'll give you a link in my description of this video how you can find her. She's amazing. And she is renowned, she's award-winning. In fact, she has some quilts in the quilt show this year, but she's won awards at previous shows in Houston and the national shows in Canada. So she's an amazing instructor as well. So first workshop that I had the privilege of taking, and I'm going to show it to you. You see it right in front of me here. She called it Magic Blocks. I'm not going to tell you how we did it because that's hers to tell. And let me tell you, what I will tell you is if you ever have an opportunity to get Terry to come to your guild and put on workshops or provide a presentation, she gave us a trunk show of many of her things. It's incredible. She is a super talented lady. Well, so Magic Blocks, here we go. I'll show it to you and then I'll give you a close-up. Da-da-da. I did this in a day, in the one workshop. And it's really fun. It's fun with fabric, not fun with flags. Let me show you. What we did is build two 12.5-inch on the side blocks with sashing, as you see here, with all these colors and squares. And it was really cool. The concept is you start with a couple of primary pieces. For me, it was a parrot, and down here a turtle, and up here was the seahorses and another turtle. But then you fill it in with your scraps. This is actually a scrap buster technique. You do have to bring in your black sashing in inch-long strips. And it was a lot of fun. As I say, I sewed these two blocks during the workshop, and then when I got home, I put them together and put something in the middle, some leftover piece, because you actually make the blocks bigger than 12.5 inches on a side. You make them more like 13.5 inches on a side. Then you trim them down, just in case you got some wonky edges. But the trimmings you can even use as part of your next block. So that was a lot of fun. So that was the first workshop. Now let me show you the second one I did. Again, and she teaches, she does these workshops all the time. She did total of 4 workshops amongst 4 guilds or more than, anyway, she presented to 4 guilds. Check this out. This is also I did in a day. Look at that. I put together this collage of a raven. This is her design, her pattern. You know, I can't give it to you. She did this. And here it is. Here's a close-up of it. There we are. Check that out. Oh, I better zoom out a bit. Here we go. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? So what you do is you layer together different types of fabrics. So she provided us the fabric, and it's on a fusible web called Steam-A-Seam Light. And it just lays down on this background piece of ready fabric. And once it's all done, you steam it, you whack it, and then you cut it out and you put it on a backing fabric, which I haven't chosen yet. That's going to be the next fun thing to do for this quilt. So there you have it. That's a quick update. I've got these 2 fun projects that I did with Terry Rowland as our instructor, and everyone who took her classes raves about how much fun they were and how instructional. I can take this concept of how I built the collage with the raven. I can find stuff. I can make my own collages. I am so pumped I'm ready to do it. The technique is bulletproof. It's really an amazing way to do things, and it was easy. So I got to give Terry kudos for coming up with a methodology that is reproducible, and I know I can do it on my own. I can even get to use my scan and cut because I can draw my pattern out using pens in my scan and cut. So I get a digital pattern, draw it out on this type of fabric, and away I go. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this really quick update. I've had a fabulous week. In fact, we had Terry staying with us, Carolyn and I. We hosted her at our place for the majority of the time she was on the island. And this was her first time to Vancouver Island, so she got to see some of the sights, see some of the scenery. And then we had the added bonus of having some amazing chats and discussions on quilting. Carolyn mostly, because she's the quilting expert in our household. I learned a lot just by being there, just by listening to all the great ideas that were thrown back and forth. And Terry is a very approachable person. So once again, big shout out to Terry. Thank you so much for the amazing workshops and presentations you did for us. And I know that all the guilds you went to are super thrilled with what you did. And you that are watching me talk about Terry, look her up, Terry Rowland. She's at T Row Studios. So Google or search for that. I'm sure it'll come up on Facebook. She does Facebook, she does YouTube, Instagram. She's out there. It's been 3 or 4 days since I checked in and showed you the cool projects that I had worked on as a result of Terry Rowland and her amazing workshops. Well, I can now report that both Carolyn and I finished one of those 2 projects because Carolyn, the amazing Carolyn, also took the same magic block workshop that I took. And in fact, we sat side by side and I borrowed her tools and life was good. I was very needy that day. I even needed to use her reading glasses because I forgot mine. So she just happened to have an extra set. Oh, and while I was sewing, I did something dumb and I broke my sewing needle. And then one of the ladies across from me said, "Oh, I have an extra needle. You can use this one on the sewing machine." I was needy that day. But anyway, so we both finished our projects. So I'll show you first how they came out. I'll show you Carolyn's first because hers is, I love her color. So here you go. Dun, da, da. Hopefully you can see all that in all its glory. It came out really good. She did four squares. And then you can see it's all sashed, and then and she added the border, the sashing around the edges and the binding. Okay, now here's mine. I only did 2. I finished these 2 blocks at the workshop, but then of course I finished them at home. So there you go. There you go. I added a couple extra bits to mine, and I'll show you details of how the quilting was done on each of them. So let's start off with Carolyn's first. I'll turn it around. I'll give you the close-up. So you can. I'm going to stand up here, so you can see how it played out. Now Carolyn quilted hers. I'll zoom in as she stitched in all the sashings. So this is her primary quilting. She stitched down in the black of each piece of sashing and went around and sewed it. And then for the binding, she used a black binding on top of the black sashing, so it all blends together quite nicely. And if you flip it over, you'll see the quilting she did, okay? Nice and straight. Notice how straight all the edges are. How good her sewing is. I mean, when I show you the close-up of mine, you're going to see my sewing is not as good as Carolyn's. No surprise there. But now let's bring in mine. Da-da-da. Okay, I'm going to do it this way, so hang on a sec here. All right, here's mine now. So you'll see I've got it sideways. I added the extra thing in here between the 2 blocks. I think I might have showed you that before. I also stitched in all the blacks, but then I added an echo stitch around every panel to give it a bit more definition, and I also stitched around the critters. So they're stitching around the seahorse, they're stitching around the parrots, and they're stitching around the turtle, and the other turtle in the other, oh yeah, maybe it'll show better, the other turtle in the corner. So I added extra quilting to mine, and I also, if you'll zoom in here, you can see I stitched the double row of black in the blue. I decided to have a nice thin blue outer border and then a mostly black binding. It's a piece of black that I found in my stash with a bit of blue hints to it. Now if we flip it over, you can see my stitching. So you can see there's a little more definition in the stitching than Carolyn's, just the way it worked out. And there we are. So, super excited to wrap this up. We had a great week with Terry Rowland. She put on amazing workshops, an amazing presentation. We shared Terry amongst 4 guilds. She went to this guild on Main Island, one of the Gulf Islands, south of us, off of the southern end of Vancouver Island. She then did a workshop and a presentation for Nanoose Bay's group. They don't call themselves a guild, and I went to both of those because I have connections. Carolyn's in them, in both, in that. And then she zipped off to Comox, and she gave a presentation at the Comox Guild. Or was a workshop, I can't remember which. And then she came back and she did a workshop for Parksville with the Raven that you saw me do. And then she put on a presentation for Parksville. And then she put on another workshop for Parksville. But it was the magic blocks that you see here. But I didn't go to that one because I'd already did the one with Nanoose Bay. So there we are. She was T Row Studios. You got to look up Terry Rowland. I'll put a link for her, one of her, because she does YouTube as well. Lots of followers, way more than me. You check out Terry Rowland. I don't do Instagram or Facebook, so I can't give you links for that because I just don't know what they are. But look for her as well there, because apparently she's quite active on social media, and she talks. If you put a comment on anything she's done, she responds to you. This is a thing of hers. She's mentioned that to us. She always responds to every person who comments or talks to her on her social media. She's very switched on. So once again, we had a great time. Hope you enjoyed this relatively quick Quilting with Dawn episode where I really show off and highlight a fellow quilter, a quilting goddess, if you will, Terry Rowland. And Carolyn and I both really enjoyed hanging out with her and also taking her workshops and presentations. Hope you enjoyed this. You guys have a great one. Cheers.